Posterity is the eyewitness of truth tellers. When you tell the truth, just give it time. It will speak for itself. Thomas Hobbes was a British or an English writer. He wrote Leviathan many years ago after studying some societies, and he came to a conclusion that life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Hobbes didn't visit Africa, let alone Nigeria, before putting out or putting down his treatise. But if you looked at the Nigerian state as it is today, you will find out that it's a Hobbesian society. It's like Thomas Hobbes was actually writing about a state that was yet to be. Nigeria is characterized by the happenings of Thomas Hobbes' state of nature, where lawlessness was the order of the day. Anybody can do anything and go away with it because might was right. So you have freedom of whatever, negative freedom right now. You are free to take someone else's belongings. You are free to, dehumanize the other person. You are free to do whatever to whoever, as long as you are strong enough to put up with it. Just like some people say, as long as you are able to fund your demon, just keep doing it. So that will make society to be extremely chaotic, anarchical. There wasn't any form of government. Government was to the extent that someone else was stronger than you are. But that is what we have in Nigeria today. I pass my neighbor. If I am having more connection than you are having, I can ride on you, I can trample on your right. In the Nigerian situation, it's more like the government or the politicians against the people. So we have a situation where the people are in darkness, but the politicians are having uninterrupted power supply, even though it is alternative power supply. Nigeria has a president who has installed solar power at the government building. I don't know if there is another country that has such a thing. So the inequality gap between the haves and the have-nots in Nigeria is akin to that of Thomas Hobbes' state of nature. But I will look at those dominant features of Thomas Hobbes' state of nature. So Leviathan, for him, Leviathan is a sea creature, very monstrous sea creature that tramples on smaller sea creatures because it was the largest and most powerful sea creature. So it feeds on other sea creatures that were smaller than it was. But what will happen is that the people will have to come together and surrender their power or their right to a group of people that will administer over them so that offenses or crimes against other humans will be punished. It is at that point that there is the signing of the social contract. So the social contract theory was actually the motivating factor for Thomas Hobbes' treatise. In modern society, that social contract is entered through periodic elections like we have in Nigeria. Next year, we will file out to vote. That's like signing a contract, giving your rights or your powers to a group of persons that will form government to protect your life, to protect your property, to protect your human rights. But when you have a situation where it is those same people that you gave your right to for protection that will turn around to abuse your rights, then there is a problem. Life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. I will take them one after the other. Solitary, loneliness, being on your own. In Nigeria, we say OYO or you are on your own. The government doesn't care. They only come around when it is time for you to vote for them, after which they are no more. They will carry tinted glasses. And then whatever happens to you, you are on your own. Life is solitary. It is currently happening in Oyo State. It's like art. There is a way reality imitates art. Little children were taken from school alongside their teachers. The math teacher was beheaded. The rest of those hostages are still in the bush. It is over 30 days now. The government haven't said anything, let alone doing anything. Those children and teachers are being dehumanized in the forest, and nothing has been done. That nothing is looking like going to be done. Simple reason is because we are on our own. We are living in solitary in Nigeria. You think you have friends, you think you have government, you think you have people around you until something wrong happens to you. You realize that life is solitary in Nigeria. What about life being poor? This one is like the national identity card for every Nigerian that is not connected to the political source. Even the politicians are poor, poor rich men. Poverty of electricity. The richest black man is from Nigeria, but he cannot afford, with all his wealth and riches, he cannot afford uninterrupted power supply unless he looks towards an alternative means. So no matter how rich you are in Nigeria, you are suffering the poverty of electricity because you will have to resort to alternative power supply. That is not wealth. That is the poverty of wealth. You have all the money you can think of, but you cannot afford electricity. You have to resort to generator sets, solar panels, including the president. Nigeria has the poorest president in the world, a president that cannot afford electricity. We are all poor. In fact, poverty in Nigeria is a national identity. If you do not have it, I think you are just a guest in the country. When you go to dump sites, refuse bin, you see fellow human beings fighting over waste. You will see fellow human beings dragging, struggling because this dump site is my territory. You don't have to encroach. That is how people survive in Nigeria. And of course, the insecurity that Nigeria has been characterized by is simply as a result of poverty. Why is the insurgency growing so large in the north? But they say it is an Islamic agenda. That is a talk for another day. But if it were an Islamic agenda, which a lot of people think it is, the fact that those northern youths are easily recruited into terrorism speaks of one thing: poverty. When you are rich or wealthy, or when you can earn a living, you will be too busy earning a living to resort to crime. In fact, you will be afraid of committing crime so that the state will not apprehend you and take you out of your livelihood. It is when you do not have a means of livelihood that you resort to anything. And when someone promises you, when someone promises you 10,000 naira, when you wouldn't remember the last time you saw 2,000 naira, they will give you a gun. And that is it. Poverty is the root of the crisis in Nigeria. You know, the Bible says the love of money is the root of evil. But what is actually the root of evil is the lack of money. When you do not have money, you are not supposed to think right. It's not how it used to be. Materialism never defined what would later become Nigeria. It is the advent of the Europeans that introduced the kind of capitalism and feudalism that has culminated in the economic realities of Nigeria as it is today. Poverty is the root of evil. What about life being nasty? Being nasty means being mean, indecent, repugnant, you know, causing severe pain, something that is hazardous. The nastiness in Nigeria is what nobody knows how to explain. You cannot live a life decently. You cannot have a decent life in Nigeria. In fact, every person is looking at what they will do to the other person for their gains. Everywhere is chaotic. Why is it so? Because the leaders have reduced the country to being in the state of nature. Thomas Hobbes also said life is brutish, life is animalistic. In Nigeria, brutality. Do you see how the terrorists are going? They don't care. When they take you, they ask for ransom. And then in some cases, ransom will be paid on you and you will still be killed. It has happened in many cases. What level of brutality is that? The funny thing is that the government is doing really nothing about it. We have the military, but it's as if the military is just for shows. I don't know. An army general was kidnapped and then died in captivity. Whether he died or was killed, but he died in captivity. And his remains were released by the terrorists. To who? Where was it done? Such brutality, and everybody is moving on like we are all fine. Life is also short in Nigeria. What is the life expectancy of an average Nigerian? For 54 years. In America, life expectancy is about 73 years. In UK, is over 80 years. In Iran that has been fighting a war, life expectancy is 77 years. But in Nigeria, it is 54, and our data are not always correct. Could be less than that. What that means is that as soon as you're getting close to 50 years, you just have to start preparing for death. What about infant mortality? The rate is very high in Nigeria, one of the highest in the world. I don't know if the country is cursed, if I'm going to say so, because infants that haven't felt anything, they, they, they just come and go. You know, if it were spiritualists, they would say that the infants have perceived that they don't belong here. This place will not be good enough for them, so let them go back. In Nigeria, life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So we are living in the state of nature. Now, according to Thomas Hobbes, when this happens, the people would come together and select or elect a group of people to form government to guarantee life, a meaningful life, to protect the rights, life, and properties of the people, to ensure that solitary is not the order of the day, to take away poverty, to end nastiness, to end brutality, and to increase life expectancy. That is the work of leadership. But when you are in a country, or when you are from a country where those people who are expected to guarantee this wellness of life are rather the ones who fuel the nastiness and the brutality, or at least the ones who turn a blind eye on it, what will you do? Since government, politics, and leadership is failing Nigeria. What are Nigerians supposed to do? Are they supposed to sit back and, be on death row? So it's going to be about who's next in line. When we sit down and wait for who is next in line, we will all perish, one after the other. So at the failure of governance, the people rise up to the occasion. When the kingdom suffers violence, the violent is supposed to take it by force. But you read it in your scriptures and you recite it like poems. But that's an instruction. Take it by force. I have always maintained that it is only through a revolution that Nigeria will see the light of day. We've gone past negotiation, we've gone past dialogue. What haven't we dialogued? What haven't we negotiated? What exactly? We've gone past protest. Protest was recently done. How far did it go? There need to be a revolution. Could be intellectual revolution. When we change the way we think, the things we think about are going to change. An average Nigeria thinks in a way that supports their victimization. It's not actually about the fact that you are being victimized. It is mostly about the fact that you are not opportune to be the one who victimizes. That is why you will see someone talk so much against the government and immediately they have the opportunity to become a part of the government. They observe table manners. When you are eating, you're not supposed to be talking. Ruben Abati, table mannerism. But as long as the people have refused to think towards a revolution, the things that happen in Nigeria will continue to happen until the people rise up against oppression. Oppression will not cease. Your oppressor, the one who puts you in chains, will never take out the chain. It is your duty to save yourself from oppression. You cannot be having an expectation on a government that doesn't care if you died.